Welcome back to Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790 AM. Brought to you proudly by Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, Barton Power Sports, Sportsman's Warehouse, and Best Care Home Services.
Okay, we're back on this
July 1.
July the 1st, which is hard to believe. And July the 2nd tomorrow will mark my 50th anniversary. And the media here in Memphis, of course, there you go. The last 30 years have been spent outdoors, really. The first 20 or
he
so.
He just found his way in the other day.
Yes, he did.
Yes, right.
The
first 20 was mostly high school preps, but I also covered auto racing. I covered football, baseball, the Memphis Blues, baseball.
All right.
They keep forgetting the Blues. All they talk about is the chicks. There was the Memphis Blues and Dr. Bernard Krause.
I remember that.
Gary Carter played here, and I got to cover that. So a lot of different things.
I was a Chickasaw buddy.
When you started,
when
you started riding
in 1967,
okay,
July.
You're sitting there in front of your Underwood.
Yeah. I still have it. I took it home.
And, I was talking about that the other day, and I told a lady, I sit there in front of my Underwood, and she goes, "Boy, I hadn't heard that in a long time." So.
Yeah.
You sit there tight.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is not like on the computer today with the spell check, and if you make a mistake.
No, it was.
How many times did you ever start an article where you have to rip it out and put another?
I don't even want to think about it. I went through a lot of paper, and everything was. And I still hit my computer with my fingers the same way I did on my Underwood, and I have it sitting there, and that thing was heavy.
Right.
That typewriter was heavy.
Yeah.
And it was manual.
It was manual. Had to have a ribbon inside of it.
Yeah,
but now we're really aging us now because we've gone through so many things, and I've tried to incorporate some of these things, and I'll talk a lot more in the Mid-South Hunting and Fishing News magazine about some memories and things. I started out with 300. I worked it down to 50, and that was still too many, but it was I've had a wonderful career to be 74 years old and still involved as much as I am.
You love what you do.
Well, not all the time. Well, most of the time it is. I like the radio show. I like doing this because
he has the face for radio.
I have the face for radio, and we'll let this next guy judge this because this is one of my mentors. When it's hard to believe. I don't even know how old this guy is, but he was there when I was relatively new and had to fulfill a very demanding job, following someone who was legendary in the Mid-South, and that was, of course, the late Jed Pettit. But we've got Alan Peterson on with us today, and Allison Peterson. All right, Allison Peterson. Alan Peterson, of course.
Transgender.
Yeah. Region 1 manager for the TWRA. Good morning, Alan.
How you doing, Larry? Congratulations.
You hadn't been called Allison before, have you? So
actually, there's a lady in our Nashville office that calls me that all the time because she made that mistake one time. So every time she sees me, she calls me Allison.
Oh well, okay. Well, and Alan, talk a little bit, not necessarily about the job, but how it was that I know you're a man of the field, and when Jed, the late Jed Pettit, how did you get that job? Did you want that job?
Actually, it's more a personal story than an actual professional story. But the job came open. Unfortunately, it was a terrible car accident that took Jed's life.
Yes.
And when the job came open, it was beneficial to me and my family for me to put in for the job, and that's why I did it more for personal reasons than anything that I really wanted the job. And so I had a lot to learn too, and so I guess we both kind of learned together as I grew into the job, and you started doing the outdoor stuff, so we both kind of grew together.
We really did because I was definitely wet behind the ears. A lot of people didn't say, "Well, why are you the outdoor editor at the Commercial Appeal? What experience do you have?" Well, I followed Henry Reynolds around a whole lot.
Exactly.
Yes, and Henry was.
Were you the only one that could put the worm on the hook?
I could do that.
Okay.
I could do that, and I could handle fishing rodeos and things along that line. But Jed worked with Henry, and then Jed broke me in a little bit, and then all of a sudden I'll never forget the call. And of course I know Jed, and I knew Shirley, and how much they loved Eva, Tennessee, where they lived. And then here comes Alan Peterson, and then technically, Alan, then you gave it over to the Frazier Knight here, because really you wanted to be in the field. You are a field person at heart, right?
At heart, yeah. Now that I've gotten a little older and I'm in my 60s, the job I have now is a whole lot of sitting behind a computer and a telephone. A lot more than I'd like to, but that's the way things work.
Yeah, and so explain to compare the way you were put into the position of following Jed, and then you come along and you're put in the position of following Gary Cook.
Yeah, and I was a deer biologist for about 10 years, so I followed another legend of ours named Joe Farrar, who
yes, you did.
One of the guys who was instrumental in stocking deer and turkeys all over the state. And without those guys before us, we wouldn't have near the deer and turkeys that we have in this state.
No, we were talking to Dave has got some figures on deer, and I remember sitting down and talking to Joe, and I got some pictures of them when they were releasing deer. People, you tell that to people today. Yes, we actually released deer and got them, and Joe had all these figures. His desk looked like it'd been hit by a cyclone, because he had all these figures and everything. And then you come along, and we were. What were you talking about there?
Well, it's just Alan and myself. When you're looking at the data and stuff, we kind of went to work in the early 80s.
Right.
What I call the golden years. You look at these stats, where you look at the deer kills in the 80s, and that was jumping like 20,000 deer, each season, and going up and going up. And I was talking to Alan yesterday. I said it's kind of remarkable that from 1995 to 2016.
Yeah.
That's 21 years.
Yeah.
That we have only increased the kill by 22,000 deer, in 21 years. And back in the 80s,
it looked like it was going to go over 200,000.
They would do that every year.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody was saying, well, we're going to kill 200,000 deer here before long.
But Alan can, doing working the models and everything, he can see all that and stuff, where it just kind of flatlined.
Well, so what's
there was both deer and turkeys in the 80s and 90s. There was a huge exponential growth. I mean, that population on both of those just exploded. But then in the early 2000s or a little later, we hit that plateau, and the population's kind of stabilized on both of them, and so we're probably where we're going to be from here on out. But like Dave said, we were in the golden years when it was everybody loved what we were doing, because all of a sudden they were seeing deer and turkeys everywhere where they hadn't seen one since in their lifetimes, and they thought TWA was great. Now we've reached the point where it's still great for the hunters. It may not be great if you're trying to grow a garden.
That's exactly. I can tell you that for a fact from my wife's garden out here at Shelby Farms. The deer are everywhere, and that's a whole other problem we could get into. There's so many deers at Shelby Farms that there's more out there than everything. Get to talking to Alan Peterson, Region 1 Manager, TWRA. And Alan, so you've been a part of that growth and the plateau off and everything. Give us your thoughts on where we are now and when you were doing the deer biologist during those golden years.
Yeah, it's like we said, it was great when everything was growing, and we early on there weren't the problems with the interactions between the public and the wildlife, and so a lot of what we do now is dealing with conflicts between people and wildlife, and so it's a different set of headaches. But in the old days, the headache was getting out there and trying to catch them and move them and get some populations built up, but that was the fun headache.
That was a fun headache, wasn't it? I mean, you guys, because I'm looking at this, 1952, 552 deer killed in 1952. That doesn't include the ones that were poached or hit by cars back in those days because there wasn't any deers to get hit, just about, and now I can't hardly get to church without deer running across in front of me, and that's in Bartlett, Tennessee.
Yep.
So I mean, we have our urban deer populations, and then, of course, we've had so many different things happen in your tenure with the TWR. Same thing with Dave here, that we have changes in bag limits. We've had changes. Do we want to go to 2? We want to go to 3. We're going to now the antlerless deer, which I'm telling you, I can't tell. I was hoping that would not come about, but it's still there. It's like an itch I can't get to. Okay, so, but your guys are the biologists that turn it over to the commission. It's the commission makes the votes.
Yep.
And I've seen you there. It took me a while to get used to Alan with a town, but
Yeah, me too.
yeah, I know it did.
And without a hat.
And without a hat.
And shoes on.
Yeah, well, now, I wouldn't get carried away that much. Hey, buddy, thank you for being with us. And
But,
what are you going to throw
Before we
in
cut him loose, an interesting story.
We're not
going to
cut him
about
loose.
Joe.
Yeah,
And,
Joe Farrar.
Before Joe moved over to Middle Tennessee, he lived in my county, so I used to go by and talk to him.
Love to talk to Joe.
When Joe first went to work, he said the funny part about it that, Joe was an over North Louisiana guy.
Yes, he
and,
was.
He went to work, like Alan said, his first job, he did nothing but trapped and hauled deer.
Yeah.
But
That's
the
amazing.
mindset at that time, the chief of wildlife management, who I won't name, at that time when Joe was, swore up and down a deer could not survive in West Tennessee.
Yep.
Said they couldn't survive in West Tennessee. Well,
There weren't enough woods.
yeah.
There weren't enough woods.
Today, 32% of all the deer killed across states killed in West Tennessee. So
And
we're killing a
probably,
third.
I think 5 of the top 10 counties in the state are right here, maybe even more than that. So
Larry, if you got 1 minute, I'd like to tell one story since this is your 50th before you cut me loose.
okay.
Back when I was doing my I&E stuff and working with you, Larry, you went on vacation for something, and you're gone for a little while, and somebody else, and I don't know who, took your place on the commercial appeal and wrote a story. They called me, and some hunter had supposedly gotten lost in Anderson Tully, and he was out there all night, and a black panther followed him all night. Right, and I got reporter. I said, don't print that story. There's no such thing as a black panther. And if Larry hadn't been on vacation, I don't think the story would have been written. But the guy who wrote the story, it was the headline of the Sunday edition says, TWA official says no such thing as black panther. And my phone didn't quit ringing.
Well, it wasn't me, Alan. Okay.
No.
All right, buddy. We appreciate you. Have a great one.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Alan Peterson. We're going to give away that 1-year subscription to the Mid-South Hunting and Fishing magazine. The first caller, 274-7979. During this break, you call in 274-7979 if you want to win that 1-year subscription to the Mid-South Hunting and Fishing magazine. And I'm the editor, and I think it's a pretty good magazine. Be right back on Outdoors with Larry Ray on ESPN 790.
Rise, new day's dawning, and it's calling you and me. We're the mighty